What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Coleman, and today we're going to be talking about 2024 running backs and the class that's coming up in fantasy, in college football. What's the next class? Now that the college football season is preparing to be over, who can we look forward to seeing out there in that class? What's going on after Bijan and all these guys leave college? Who is the next class? Who's the next guys that are going to step up? So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to go over their weaknesses, their strengths, their stats, their raw numbers. We're going to go over the top five, and then we're going to look at other guys that could be on the radar for you guys. So appreciate it. Hit that like button while the intro is going, and give us a sub. All right, let's dive into it. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna talk about the 2024 running backs and just the class in general. And I want to go through our top five. And again, these are all fluid. It's January, right? So we're still talking about guys. We don't know who's coming back, so I want to point that out. We don't know if Blake Corum's gonna come back. We don't know if some of these guys, Kendra Miller, so that will definitely adjust it. So when we kind of know that situation, go into it, just know that these are the guys that we know for sure are going to be in the 24 class next year, and then we'll adjust our rankings based on that. You can always follow our rankings at our Patreon, up to date, everything's there, our consensus stuff. So let's talk about number one. So I know this might be a little bit of I don't know, it's weird how it can be controversial, but I think TreVeyon Henderson's still our one. Like when you're looking at what he was able to do in his freshman year of college, 183 attempts, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 27 catches, 312 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Like people forget how good TreVeyon was his freshman year, his true freshman year. And part of it was just the injury. He had lower body injuries. And I think that's one reason why, as a sophomore, he definitely struggled, right? You see that 571 yards, 6 touchdowns. So you see him struggling as a sophomore. You didn't really see him out there. A lot of noise out there about him. But as a freshman, I mean, he dominated, right? So, and he is one of the best pass catchers. I don't know why they didn't get him involved more and more in the passing game. I think it's because of the injury, but he is one of the best pass catchers in this class, and overall, and just runner too. Like he can be a 3-down guy. So if he can figure that out, the injury stuff, and we'll talk about some of the weaknesses in his game. If he can figure that stuff out, he's a true 3-down guy, right? I think that's what separates him a little bit, why he's number one, but that gap is definitely closed. So you used to be Henderson and Tier. It's no longer Henderson and Tier now. These guys are all very close. I would argue the top 3 guys are pretty interchangeable as we go through these guys, depending on what you want from a fantasy perspective and from a running back perspective. So let's just talk about real quick what Henderson does well and what he doesn't do well. So strengths, speed, he has that. Like he's one of the, you'll see it at 21 miles an hour. He gets clocked all the time in terms of how his speed. You saw it against Penn State when he did finally get to play. Like he shows that he can get to that second level, third level, burn him, turn in the corner, those type of things you love to see. Receiving, like I talked about, like he does it at all different facets. He's not just a screen guy or a dump off guy. Like he can run routes. They split him out, like kind of cognitive of kind of Saquon Barkley was at Penn State. And kind of how they used him. Like you could see them kind of use him that way. So receiving to me is a big plus, especially when we're talking about fantasy. Lateral agility, he has that. In the open field, he makes guys miss. And he's great with it. Like in terms of like he never gets taken down the first time in open field. Like you'll see him multiple times make that first defender miss in the open field. And when he gets out in space, he is special. Now, his weakness is, first of all, durability. We got to throw it out there. Like, he just wasn't durable this year, and I hate to say it's a weakness or whatever. I know injury-prone is not, so injury guys are going to yell at me. But, hey, can he stay healthy? I think can he stay healthy, and that's something we're going to have to look at his junior year. If he doesn't stay healthy again, he's going to go down the board. So that's a value drop, right? Pass blocking, not very good at it. Just being honest, he struggles there. He struggled as a freshman, and then over the summer, he said, hey, I'm going to work on it. He just hasn't been out there. So reps, right? So when we're talking about, hey, what can he do? He's got to get reps in that area. Between the tackles is somewhere where a lot of people are questioning right now. And I think that's something that is highlighted. Christian Williams has talked about it. My co-host and someone who I really trust with running backs, he struggles sometimes in between the tackles. I know toughness gets thrown around, and I hate using that word because I hate questioning kids' toughness. But there's something wrong with his running style this year. It looked like he was very timid back there. So between the tackles, what was going on? Was it timidness? Was it vision issues? Was it his ankle? Like there was something going on where he was not a very good runner between the tackles. So that's something to look forward and say, okay, how is he going to improve on that next year? Does he get those tough yards? Does he do those things? Because they brought in Mayan Williams this year to get those tough yards. And that's something to look forward to or see. Okay, does he improve on that? Because if he can't get tough yards, he can't play in the NFL on those downs. He's not score touchdowns, right? Then what is he, DeAndre Swift? And we see what Swift's done this year. I love DeAndre Swift, but from a fantasy perspective, not great. Now, my number 2 might be controversial too, but I still have Shipley there. So Will Shipley from Clemson. When you're looking at just the numbers that he's put up this year, he got more usage, he stayed healthy, 210 attempts, 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns, and he scores a lot of touchdowns. I don't know why guys get complaining about Shipley. There, 242 yards receiving. He is also a very good receiving back in this offense. You saw him make a couple back shoulder catches this last year, those type of things. Like he can definitely do that. And I want to point out he is hamstrung in this offense. Like this Clemson offense is one of the worst offenses in the country in terms of getting their players out in space. They don't do that very well with Shipley. And he's been able to kind of add mass, but not lose his explosiveness, which is something that I wanted to make sure he could do after coming out of high school with the weight he was at. If he can stay over that 205 mark, I mean, he has already produced better than Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs is looking at, and I know the receiving's not all the way there, but Jahmyr Gibbs is looking at as a predominant running back to the 23 class. I think Shipley makes an argument for this, right? Now, what does he do well? So if we're looking at scouting here, burst, he has that. So you see that initial burst, gets through the line. And I think he does have some elusiveness too. Like in open field, he can make guys miss. Burst, looseness, receiving, we already mentioned, but that elusiveness kind of steps up. Like he makes those guys miss in the second level. Like you'll see him make linebackers miss. Now, I say the weakness is that long speed. He gets caught from behind a lot. And I think that's the question mark with Shipley moving forward is can he increase his foot speed to kind of break those long runs? There are multiple times on tape when he gets caught from behind. And that's a problem. Like if we're going to be honest with each other here, I'm a big Shipley guy, but that long speed is, I think, the question mark. Now, the thing is, can that elite elusiveness and burst separate him enough to not have to worry about that long speed, right? Now, pass blocking, everybody got to worry about pass blocking, especially him. I think he gets in it. He's tough. He gets it. He tries it. He's got technique issues, though. Lunges at guys. You can see him kind of get on the balls of his feet. There's little things that he does wrong in pass blocking he's going to have to do there. And you know what? Vision is another one. Like, and I don't know if it's just Clemson's scheme or whatever, but he runs in the back of his lineman a lot, and he does struggle there. Like, and you'll see like there's holes open. He misses them. And so he has the burst to get through the line. So I don't think it's burst issues. I don't think it's acceleration issues. I think it's vision issues. I don't know what he's seeing out there. Part of it is that damn offense, but other stuff, like I do think he struggles there. Now, my number 3, which is some people's 1, and I wouldn't blame you to have him at 1 or 2 because based on his production this last year, Raheem Sanders. I mean, 6'2", 227, the Rocket, that's what they call him. 222 attempts, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. He also showed a little bit of receiving ability, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns there. Like when you're looking overall, you're really happy with what Raheem Sanders has done thus far. Like he really took that next step, right? He kind of, he had that kind of 2-back system last year at Arkansas in 2021. And then this year was like, hey, I'm going to go take this guy and I'm going to have it. So Raheem is there. Now, I know many have him as a running back 1. I think for me, Shipley and Henderson from a fantasy perspective, remember these are fantasy ranks, is a little higher just because that receiving. Now, so Sanders has done it, but I do think just usage and the way NFL is going, I can see that. But if Sanders can duplicate this and be a 3-down guy, he'll easily be 1, right? So this is just right now. But again, if you're in a startup draft, based on ADP and where everything's going, Sanders is going ahead of Shipley. He's not going ahead of Henderson, but he is going ahead of Shipley. So you may be able to get some value there, but just know if you want Sanders, you better take him in that first probably 11 picks. He's going around 106 to 112. Now, scouting wise, where is Sanders at? Strengths is his production. I mean, he produced like, hey, he was one of the best rushers in the SEC this year. He was absolutely phenomenal. Size, he's got the size and frame. He is a downhill kid, man. When he gets going, he goes. Now, speed is downhill speed. Like he has it once he goes. Like you'll see this. You'll see a couple off tackle plays where he gets it out to the outside. Well, if he turns the corner without being hit or without having to change direction, that dude is a downhill train, and you better get the hell out of the way because he's going to just crush you. Like that's the speed that you see. Now, weaknesses though. Pass blocking again, receiving, yes. I know that he has that kind of production, but I don't think his hands are that good. When you're watching him play, like I think he's more of that swing dump off guy, which hey can produce, right? But he's not a hand, a hand catcher. He's not a hand receiver there out of the backfield that you can split out wide. I don't think he's going to be able to be that. And then that lateral agility is worrying me. So this is the one reason why I have him knocked down a little bit is I do think he struggles in the open field. Now he makes people miss, but it's more about his size and his one step and go. Like he doesn't necessarily move very, very quickly in that second, third level. And when you watch him, like if he has to lose momentum, it's hard for him to kind of get that momentum and that acceleration back up. So when he loses it, he loses that acceleration. Whereas a guy like Henderson loses that acceleration, he can get back up quicker. And that's where that long speed really comes into play. Sanders doesn't do that. So that is the one reason why he's a little bit lower, is because that lateral agility. Now, when he gets down going, it's hard to stop the guy. So there is that too, right? So when we're thinking of both sides, that's the area you got to go. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's a tier after this. So I really truly believe it's 1, 2, those 3 guys, and then you have your tier break. Now, here's your tier. So Braylon Allen is my 4, and some people are talking about his running back 1. I think that was a little premature. He's always been lower on my list, to be honest with you. He was my, I believe, 3 coming into the season, and now he's my 4. He had an okay year, but when you see the usage went up, his efficiency went down. So he had 186 attempts and 1,200 yards his freshman year, and his sophomore year, he had 230 attempts, only 1,200 yards. And I know the offensive line struggles. I know the quarterback struggles. I know all of that, but his efficiency goes down. And I think that's the concern, right? When we're talking about him moving forward as a prospect, he's never going to be a receiver. So you see the receiving in there. We know the story, 17-year-old, never really played the position, 6'2", 235, all those things are there. But he is that 4. Now, when you're looking at what he does well and what he doesn't do well, I mean, the production was there. So you looked at it, he has that 2,000-yard season. So that is something to note. Size, he's big, man. And then when you're talking about what he does, downhill, break tackles, and he does that. Now, he does it against kind of lesser opponents, so you've definitely seen that. But there's also that size and that production that you like, right? So you have that. And it's strength, like broken tackles, arm tackles. That shit doesn't work with Braylon. Like, he's going to go through you. He's going to find you and go through you. So those are where his highlights. So it's kind of like Raheem Sanders, but Raheem's got more, I think, lateral agility, which scares me, because when I put lateral agility on for Allen, that's going to be a nerve-wracking thing. And then you have speed. Like, I think he's okay, and he has that kind of that quickness, but he doesn't necessarily has that speed to get out and outrun guys. Now, there's going to be tape. There's guys like 90-yard touchdown runs. I know that, but I don't know necessarily like if he's up to that level of those top 3 guys, right? Like, based on his speed and lateral agility. I think he really struggles there. And I know Jeff always talks about how he should just be an edge and go and just play edge and make more money. But I think there's something to his size. Like, he needs to slim down just a little bit and try to get up that lateral quickness. That's something to note when you're going into your drafts, and know that about him. Like, projection wise, I mean, where can he kind of fit? People are going to split him with Jonathan Taylor, do the helmet scouting, stuff like that. I'd be a little bit nervous about that. Like, I think Jonathan Taylor was way more of an athlete. Like, Allen isn't there. So hopefully this summer he breaks that down, gets a little bit more acceleration, gets that lateral quickness. Now, my 5th guy on this list is Donovan Edwards, and I think this is where the other tier goes. Like, where are you going to put Donovan Edwards? Obviously, he just played against TCU in a loss in the playoff, but he had 991 yards, 7 touchdowns. He had 18 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So when you're looking at that, receiving-wise, he's done it. Production-wise, he's going to step in. Now, the question is Blake Corum coming back? So if Blake Corum comes back, it's going to knock Donovan Edwards down. So that's something to kind of note as we go through him. Strengths for him, receiving, obviously that. Like, he had a broken hand this year, so you haven't seen those numbers, but he is literally their best wide receiver for the last 2 years. He's been the best wide receiver on that team. Speed, he's got it. You saw the runs against Ohio State in the regular season. You see that kind of area. He could break off those runs, 40, 50 yards easily. Burst, he has that too. First come hits that line, he's gone. And you saw that. And I think that when he does have the good vision and he gets through the line, it's really excellent. Now, on the other side is between the tackles. I mean, he struggled tonight against TCU. If you're watching this on when I released it, or this week against TCU, he really struggled between the tackles. And that's something to know. Like, people have noted this over and over again about him. It's like, can he be that guy? He was not Corum. He's not that guy that can kind of make guys miss at the line of scrimmage and go. He needs those holes to break through. So he has that. He has that vision. Problem as well. I think when he makes when Michigan's line, which is the best line in college football probably the last 2 years, he had the vision because the holes were so open. But when they were closed, it was hard for him to find those holes. And I think that's something to note. And in size, he's not a big guy. So you're looking at the size that he has. He's been a little banged up the last couple of years, especially this year. 204 pounds. Where is he really? If he's under that 200-pound mark, that's concerning. And it would be nice to see him getting that 210, 215 line. And where does that production go? Now, the rest of the guys on the prospects that I want to kind of talk about before we get out of here, Devin Neal is someone that I really like, 5'11", 210, sophomore out of Kansas. He's had a pretty good year moving forward and a pretty good career. 707 yards his freshman year, 1,000 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. He got some receiving in there. So be on the lookout for Devin Neal. He doesn't get the love that a lot of people get the love for because, he's a playing at Kansas, and he didn't really get a usage as much as you saw. You saw his usage go up a little bit, but not too much. So be on the lookout for Devin Neal. Next one's Montel Johnson. You know, when you're looking at sophomore, 5'11", 218, Florida Gator running back, 841 yards this year, 10 touchdowns. Trevor Etienne is there, though, so you're going to see, okay, where does that usage come from? But he's a kid to be on eye on. Alton McCaskill was injured. Phil Maffa, Clemson, running back behind Shipley. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, I think he's getting slept on a little bit, so be on the lookout for him. And then Carson Steele, I know Ball State, I know I have a rule against non-power 5 running backs. So I want to put him on a list just to highlight him because he had a hell of a year this year. And I think it would be a disservice not to talk about a kid that had 1,500 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns. So 1,500 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns, 289 attempts. Like, Carson Steele's on here because of his production, and you have to like that. So those are our top 5 guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Let us know what you think. Where is your list? Put in the chat. Literally, put your top 5 for me. Let me see it. Let's argue. Let's discuss. Let's talk about it. Who do you have up there? Do you think Raheem Sanders should be one? Where do you guys have those guys? So until next time, I'll see you guys later.